It's great to be with you here today. We are going to be talking about fitness trackers, evolution and adaptation. According to the Consumer Electronics Association, or I should say now the Consumer Technology Association, wearable fitness and activity tracking devices saw substantial growth in ownership, increasing to 11% of households in 2015, which is more than double the number of households in the year previous. And the NPD group, Connected Intelligence Wearables Forecast, projects activity tracker ownership will be at 32 million by the end of 2016. Now, certainly these devices have changed since they were introduced over 30 years ago, and in turn, they have changed the way that we live. Our panel is going to explore this evolution and adaptation. We actually have a fun and interactive format this session that's actually going to require you to stand up, so you might kind of want to get ready for that. So I'm going to let each panelist introduce themselves, and then I'll tell you how we're going to proceed. So why don't we go ahead and start on this end, Liz, and actually, now that I think about it, I might be doing this in the wrong order. So depending on the slides, actually, I'm thinking that we might need to start with Marco. Is that correct? We'll go with Marco, all right? Let's try that. Marco, please go ahead and introduce yourself and your company and products.
Sure. Marco Suvilaakso. I'm the Global Product Director for Polar, working with the product management team. And Polar is really, it's like the original fitness tech company. And we do a lot of unique things in heart rate, activity tracking, and in both the B2C and B2B business.
Terrific, thanks. And how about you, Liz?
Well, I am the CEO and founder of Mio Global. So Mio actually has been dedicated since this company started really in around 2000 to creating meaningful fitness solutions for individuals. And really, we kind of are best known for having introduced continuous heart rate to the general public at the wrist in a very accessible format that was accurate even at high performance speeds. And people said that actually could never be done. And we did it. And so we're continuing along that line of technological leadership by introducing at CES here PI, which is Personal Activity Intelligence, which is an artificial intelligence-based engine. And we're super excited to talk about that.
Cool. Well, we will be hearing more about that shortly, I'm sure. Jocelyn?
Oh, hi, I'm Jocelyn Vigreux. I'm the president of TomTom North America. And, you know, TomTom as a company is always dedicated its life to make life easier. And most of you guys know us for introducing the very first navigation device that only had one button on-off. But also in the health and fitness area, we've pushed the design frontier with the venture we had with Nike, bringing heart rate also to the wrist, and more recently bringing music on the wrist and allowing athletes, everyday athletes, to shed the phone and to just think about what they're doing and bring their music with them. Again, simplifying life.
All right, Michael, you have a very interesting product and company, so tell us about it.
Yeah, my name is Michael Hurnaus. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Tractive. At Tractive, we focus on pet wearables. So everything in the pet space, we have a lineup of GPS tracking devices like real-time tracking devices you attach to the collar of your dog or cat, so you can see on your smartphone, where's my cat, where's my dog. But on the other hand, we also have a fitness and activity tracking device called Tractive Motion. It tracks how much your dog moves, how much the dog sleeps, whether or not you need to walk your dog more, and things like that. A lot of stuff that you're probably familiar with from fitness trackers for humans, but just in the pet space.
Pretty cool, huh? All right, okay, so this is the way it's going to work. We're going to have a fast fact session here, where I'm going to ask you, the audience, to vote on the correct answers to some questions by standing or sitting. So, and since this is a fitness tech summit, we need to get some activities. So will you all stand up for me? All right? And what I'm going to do is for each of the companies and each of the panelists here, I'm going to ask a question about their company or their product, and I want you to guess the right answer. Okay, so let's see if we can get to our slides, and we'll go with the first question. I'm pressing the button. All right. Oh, okay, this is not the order that we were going in, but that's okay. All right, so this is about Polar. Polar is the pioneer of the fitness wearables, having launched the first commercial heart rate monitor for athletes. What year did that first product launch? Was it 1970, 1982, 89, or 95? Wait, before you call out your answer, what I want you to do is pick an answer, and if you said D, I want you to sit down. Anyone sitting down? No, I didn't think so. How about C, 1989? All right. Any A's out there? 1970? Sit down. All right, you guys are standing up. Chose B, 1982. That is the correct answer. Give yourselves a round of applause. That's great. You all can go ahead and have a seat. And I want to ask you, so Marco,
Yes.
what strategy did you first use to introduce that product way back in 1982? And is there anything you would have done differently if you had to do it all over again?
Well, I was in grade 2, I think, back in '82. So I honestly, I wasn't there directly, but from what I understand, really the whole idea was it was based on the need of coaches. Coaches at that point were looking for a solution as to how to track heart rate in real time for athletes that were training. So that's when the founder of the company, Professor Saunainen Kangas, who was an electronics professor in a local university in northern Finland, thought of this solution really to be able to address the need of coaches and athletes. And from that point, then it just exploded into the world scene with elite athletes adopting the technology, because it was a huge leap forward from the subjective or speed and distance-based training, which was much more inefficient. So that was the beginning of the heart rate, and we did the world's first activity monitor in 2007.
Wow,
as
so
well.
you have
leading
lots
in
of good
both
firsts there.
Heart rate and activity.
Cool. All right, good. Okay, we're going to go to the next question, so if I can get the next slide up. And let's see if we can go back. Okay, so again, go and stand on up here, everybody. Yeah? At least you get some motion here, okay? All right, so this is about TomTom. And I want you to think, is it true or is it false that close to 1 billion people rely on TomTom data every day across their business? True or false? If you said false, sit down. And everyone who is standing has got the right answer. It's true. Congratulations. Good job. All right, so it is true that close to 1 billion people rely on TomTom data every day. I'm curious, what are some of the most common use cases, and what are some of the more unusual ones, Jocelyn?
Well, as you know, we've done a lot in navigations and mapping, and also a lot in health and fitness. Most of our, if for instance you take your iPhone and tap on the Apple Map application, well, guess what? You're using TomTom mapping data. So that's a big chunk right there. And on the less common, you have traffic, obviously, all of this and around the world. And on the less common areas, what we are doing with all of that data that we've collected over the years is allow us to really look on congestion and around the world and traffic and all that. And government and municipalities actually look at this historical data to make choices on whether they should build a bridge or put one more lane of traffic turning left or turning right. So that's also some of the maybe less thought of application of what that data can do.
Right, who knew? So very personal to me, I'm trying to get somewhere, but then also on a more city or state or even country level, how do you manage traffic better? That's pretty cool. All right, let's go to the next question. Guess what? You guys have to stand up again. All right. And this is an interesting one, I got to tell you. So what percentage do you think of dogs and cats in the US are overweight or obese? And you got to think about your own little pet there, right? Okay, so is it 12%, 20%, 31%, or 54%? Pick an answer. And if you said A, you're going to have to sit down. All right. I think we know our pets better than to say A. Did you say B, 20%? You're going to have to sit down for that also. You're also going to have to sit down if you said C, 31%. Yeah, that's right. 54% of our pets are overweight or obese. So congratulations to those of you who selected that choice. And Michael, tell us, why should people care about the health of their pets? I mean, you know, you don't want a fat pet that kind of reflects poorly on you, but other than that, why should you really care?
Well, I think pets become more and more family members, whereas like 15, 20 years ago, it was like the dog that was just around the house or the cat that was around the house. It more and more become family members. So people want to make them happy, and they feed them all kind of food, and whenever the dog whistles up a little bit or something like that, they would give the dog treats or the cat. And with all the processed foods, it also actually reflects pretty bad on the health of the pets. So indeed, over 50%, and not just in the US, but also in all over Europe, are actually obese or overweight. So there's definitely a lot to do there, and there's a huge market.
Great. Okay, and so now we need to go back to the Mio slides. I'm hoping that you all back there can do that. And this is our final question in this Fast Fact round. So once again, last time for now, go ahead and stand on up. Okay, so we need to go back about 4 slides, I think, to Mio. Do we have a slide for them? No? Okay, well, I'll do this verbally. This is interesting. So Mio was the first company to introduce, so if you could maybe take that off just so it's not confusing to folks. So don't look at the slide. I'll go in and read you the question, okay? Mio was the first company to introduce performance-accurate optical heart rate monitoring in a heart rate sport watch. And there are some unique applications of a Mio wearable that actually took place. So check this out. Which one of these is an actual application that was used? Monitoring heart rates on an audience watching a horror movie. That's A. B is on a mouse that was running through a maze to find a treat. C is during a Valentine's Day speed dating event. And D, on 3 guys who were base jumping off of a cliff. One of these 4 applications actually took place for a Mio wearable. Which one do you think it was? Thinking of the answer, again, it's either on an audience watching a horror movie, mouse running through a maze to find a treat, Valentine's Day dating event, or 3 guys base jumping off a cliff. If you said the 3 guys, you're gonna have to sit down, all right? If you said Valentine's Day speed dating event, sit down on that too. Oh wow, several of you took that, that's interesting. How about on a mouse running through a maze? That sounds pretty credible, right? That actually would be kind of interesting. But you are right if you chose A, the horror movie. Congratulations, good job. All right, so Liz, you know, that speaks to the mainstreaming of heart rate monitoring. Other than heart rate monitoring, sure. Other than heart rate monitoring, what is the next hot metric? What is the next thing we're going to be measuring? And I just asked if you could speak louder, that would be helpful.
Okay, great. One of the things that struck me as we were building our business is that athletes really understood how to use heart rate monitors, and making sense of heart rate was easier for those people who had coaches and were doing lactate threshold training and whatnot than it was for everyday people. Inevitably, I would put a Mio on somebody's wrist and they'd look at their heart rate and it might be 70 or it might be 95 or whatever, and they would say to me, is that good? Because nobody really understood whether heart rate at a certain number when you're just sitting around meant something or not. So one of the things we've really been working on for several years is how do you take all of that data around heart rate, just for the everyday consumer, and make it meaningful for them. And that's how we actually came up with PI, which is the Personal Activity Intelligence Index. And it came out of Norway. It seems that the Scandinavians had nothing better to do than to fiddle around with heart rate technologies.
They're also athletic, that's why, right?
Well, it's dark up there all the time.
Okay,
right?
all
So
right.
what else
You
are
got to do
gonna
something. Right.
So they came up with this based on some really incredible science. And what we've been able to determine is using this Personal Activity Intelligence Index is that if you keep your PI score at 100, it's been clinically validated that you can add, on average, 10 years to your life.
Wow.
And it's just by, our artificial intelligence algorithms looking at your body's response to exercise and then personalizing a recommendation to you based upon how much we think you should be exercising and at what intensity. And
Great.
it's terrific. It's really
So
great.
PI is going to be the next hot metric,
Absolutely.
right?
Everybody is going to start referring to PI because steps essentially, which is the metric everyone looks to now, are meaningless because without intensity, you're not really measuring any efficacy of activity. You need to know not only how much you're doing, but the intensity of that activity.
Cool. All right. Okay. Next section of the session, I'm going to ask each panelist to pick one of the following developments that they believe has done the most to increase the stickiness of fitness trackers. And I do believe we have a slide for that, so we want to go to that just so you guys can kind of follow along. So I want to ask each panelist which of the following developments has done the most to increase the stickiness of fitness trackers, and then explain why you picked that one. So actually, Liz, we'll start with you. Which of these, gamification, integration into social networks like Facebook, personalization, maybe integration with corporate and healthcare payer, or the expansion of the quantified self movement, or the consolidation of multiple functionality onto a single device. Which of those would you say is the most important or has driven the most stickiness?
Well, I actually am going to go with number 3, personalization, because that's actually embedded into the name of our company, which is Mio, which is which is Italian for mine, because we believe that devices absolutely have to be personalized to maximize engagement. Because if you're wearing something that gives you an inaccurate number, it is far less motivational. And it makes such a big difference if you are relying on something to tell you about your caloric intake. And if you just eat a few extra calories a day, you can actually add up the pounds very quickly. So you want to know that your caloric expenditure data is accurate. How do you know that? Well, you need to have a device that has an accurate input. So that's why we made sure that the heart rate in our devices was accurate, so it fed algorithms accurately. And that's why PI is so important, that it has to be based on a clinically validated study.
Right.
Because for us, it's meaningless unless it's accurate. It might as well not even exist.
All right, so there's one vote for personalization. Marco, would you disagree? Or
I would
pick another
I
one?
would concur with that. Personalization is definitely something that Polar has also considered one of our core elements for the last 20 years, for the same reasons that Liz referenced there, because ultimately it's about success for what the individual wants to achieve. So when you can give that person really personalized guidance that relates to their goals, then it becomes more relevant. And then they succeed, they become advocates for the technology, and it just goes from that point forward. Our best advocates are our own customers who succeed.
Yeah.
So that's why at the base of it, accuracy, personalization, ease of use, all these elements have to work in concert to really be able to give an amazing experience. And that's, all those other things are awesome, they're really good. They compound it and expand, and they work together at different phases of the user experience. But I think it starts with personalization.
It's all about me, right? Okay, all right, Jocelyn, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, my esteemed colleagues are absolutely correct, and all of this is true. Everything really participated in the creation of this nascent industry. And I heard a little bit earlier, it's just the beginning. It is just the beginning. And this is why I would pick the expansion of quantified self-movement, because it was the spark. It was the realization that people wanted to know about themselves. They wanted to, and they just kind of went on their own, and they kind of said, well, I'd like to find a solution to track this or to track something about myself. That's why I would certainly, I would, not dismissing any of the others, which are also very important, kind of call out the quantified self movement that was the spark for all of this. And I really hope it's going to continue to challenge us as an industry and to bring with better product, with more accurate product. So my number 5, check.
Number 5. So we got 2 votes for number 3, 1 vote for number 5. And Michael, where do you end up on this?
Well, I guess in the space, in the pet space that we are seeing with fitness trackers for dogs and cats, I think gamification is a big factor.
Gamification,
but for us, I think even more important is we work with a lot of veterinarians and pet pharmaceutical companies that use our product to help the pet owners that have problems with their pets, which are overweight or obese. So they will actually use our product, or they will actually recommend our product to the pet owners to track the activity, to track how much they move, and to help them basically learn how much the dog has moved the last 24 hours, what can you improve, what can you do. And whenever a doctor or veterinarian recommends something or does something for you or tells you, track this and you have to do this for the next few weeks or month or whatever, that definitely gives a lot of stickiness, I guess, to that.
Right. Okay, so we have a new addition, number 7. So it's kind of like the gatekeepers or the stakeholders in the process.
So.
All right. In addition to gamification. Great. Okay. All right, we're going to go back to fast facts. We've got another 4 fast facts, 1 for each company. Again, you're going to get on your feet. So go ahead and stand up for me, please. All right. And let's put the first slide up there. If only these trackers would monitor how many times you stand up and sit down, you'd actually get a few from me here. All right, do we got that slide ready yet? Maybe, maybe not. I can do this verbally again if it would be easier, better, maybe. Okay, we're going to go with Tractive, since we ended with you previously. So, okay, Tractive, as Michael indicated, is only targeted towards pets. But, it's interesting. The company has gotten orders for GPS tracking units for all sorts of uses. Which one of the following usages has Tractive not gotten an order for? Okay, so A is tracking the elderly. B is tracking kids. C is tracking yachts. Yachts, yes, those fancy boats. And D is tracking phones. So which has Tractive not gotten an order for? Elderly, kids, yachts, or phones? Got an answer in your head? Okay, if you said yachts, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to sit down. That's just a little crazy out there, okay? Okay, how about kids? Did anyone say kids? Oh, yeah, that would be actually very practical, I think, better than those leashes that people have. Elderly, did anyone say elderly? Okay, phones, you got it, D, congratulations, good job. Okay, so Michael, people have actually ordered these things to track their phones. Does Tractive have plans to move into any of these other markets?
Actually, the thing is the other way around. So we have had orders for all of the other ones and not for tracking.
Oh, I'm sorry,
phones.
you're right,
No worries.
okay.
No worries. So I think with
I
our
screwed that
product-
one up.
No worries, no worries. So about the GPS tracking products, we ship them obviously for all different kinds of use cases, but we only market and try to develop them specifically for the pet market. We want to focus on that market. We want to be the best in that market rather than be average in every market, if you will. But we get orders from all kinds of places because our GPS units are fairly small and super robust, waterproof. So people have used it in tracking actually yachts, not necessarily for theft, but so the owner could actually know whether the skipper goes around on the weekend when he's not there, things like that. But we also ship to elderly homes, nursery homes for elderly people. It's been used for kids tracking and a lot of other things.
Great. So, I'll redeem myself and say I think that was, this idea of focusing on a specific target market, particularly when you are a startup, I think is really smart. Be a big fish in a small pond, and then you can expand from there. So, great. Okay. Are you ready for true or false? Go ahead and stand up, and we're going to talk about TomTom. All right. So we're going to do a fast fact on TomTom, which is celebrating what year anniversary next year. And you can go ahead and show that slide if you want to. This is a pretty easy true or false. Is TomTom celebrating its 20th anniversary next year? True or false? If you said true, you're going to need to sit down because it's actually false. It's their 25th anniversary. Congratulations to you and congratulations to TomTom. That's great. So I understand that all 4 of your founders are still closely involved in the business on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm kind of curious how their continued involvement, the continued involvement of founders in a business 25 years later, how has that helped the company versus bringing in like professional leadership like a lot of VCs and other investors are usually interested in doing. So tell us about that.
That's a trick question if I want to keep my job. No, I think the soul of a company is to know what it wants to be, and it's to know where to focus and have a really deep sense of self. And that's what these guys are bringing to the business every single day. And they're not just sitting in big offices remotely and making a couple of phone calls. These individuals, I certainly interact with 3 of them on a almost daily basis. And what comes out of this conversation, what comes out of this interaction is not losing track of who we are, what we want to be, and when the tough decision needs to be made, we always do this looking back at what the company is and what we stand for and what we want to be, and that's how it helps. That's how it helps to have the founders on a day-to-day basis participate in the business. This is what you don't get when you hire people. At the end of the day, we can find 100 examples that work well one way or work well the other. The bottom line is that for TomTom, I absolutely believe that they were a strength behind the business.
Right. So even over the 25 years, as your technology and your products have evolved, that staying true to what you stand for is important. Great. Okay. We have another true or false. We're getting down to the last 2. So last 2 times to stand up and stretch your legs. Go ahead and give me a stand here, and we're going to talk about Polar. And I want you to think about, is it true or false, the U.S. women's soccer team relied on Polar products this year when they trained for 5 years, actually leading up to the World Cup this year. So is it true or false that the women's soccer team relied on Polar? You probably know this is a trick question, and it is true, actually. So if you said false, sit down. If you're standing, true, congratulations. Good job here. And actually, I understand that the women's soccer team went on to win the world championships, right? Yep. So how do elite athletes, their usage of your products, actually help with mass market adoption? How does that happen?
Well, the thing is that elite athletes incur a lot of the same challenges that the masses do. They want to achieve their goals. So those are all universal things. And we take the learnings from working with these elite athletes and teams, and we then simplify them and make them adapted for the mass consumer, the fitness customer, for example. So to make it a good example is, like, for example, with the recently launched Polar A360. It puts the heart rate and the activity tracking into one device, and we're also adding weight management to that as well, so that you can simply dial in with your target, and how many weeks you want to work towards that target, and every time you sync up with the scale, your daily activity goal is adapted based on your weight loss targets. There's nothing else like that in the world. So it's really about just taking the data, combining it, making it easier and adaptable to use. And on top of that, I would say the relationship that Polar does have with a lot of the elite teams and athletes, it just reinforces to us the whole idea about reliability and repeatability. Those things, if something doesn't work really well and really easily, you know, if it's at the elite level, it's the same with consumers. People give up on things that are too difficult and not reliable enough. So that's like a mainstay of where Polar applies those learnings.
Right, so reliability and repeatability makes a lot of sense. Cool, okay. Last fast fact, and then after that we're going to open it up for questions to you. So go ahead and get on your feet, and you might be thinking about a question that you want to ask one of our panelists. It's the last time for you to stretch your legs. And this is kind of a fun question here. This is about Mio, and this is about their Pi app that Liz has been talking about, okay? Again, this is the Personal Activity Intelligence metric. And Pi is actually based on scientific data from a hunt study. I want you to guess what the hunt study was. Was it a recent American study where hunters were observed and monitored with heart rate data and other biometrics collected during their pursuits? Does a hunt mean that it was a study that analyzed data collected during a biosphere experimental research project, with HUNT being the acronym for Heart Under Normalized Tension? Was the HUNT study one of the largest health studies ever performed, conducted by the Nobel Prize-winning Faculty of Medicine at the Norwegian Science and Technology University? Or was the HUNT study a study examining the lifestyle of the Tarahumara tribe of Native American people in Mexico, who are renowned for their long-distance running ability and their extremely low incidence of heart rate disease, low incident rate of disease? So which of these is the HUNT study? And this is actually going to test whether you were paying attention, because I think that Liz actually kind of gave you a little clue ahead of time. So if you said A, the hunters, you're going to just sit down, right? Okay, most of you are standing, I think, are up to the game here. If you said B, the Biosphere Experimental Research Project, that's wrong too. D, the Tarahumara tribe of Native American people in Mexico, that's wrong too. It is C, the Norwegian Science and Technology University. Congratulations, good job. Okay, so Liz, tell us a little bit more about the HUNT study, how it came about, and what the learnings were from it.
The HUNT study is probably one of the only studies of its kind. It started in 1984. And it is one of the largest epidemiological studies, longitudinal in nature, with the most data points gathered, activity, blood samples, urinalysis, activity, heart rate, whatever, was all looked at and correlated over a 20-year period of time. But one of the things that when you're looking at data over a 20-year period of time, what comes out of that is that unfortunately some people die. And what that allowed us to do was look at the relationship between activity, heart rate, and death. And from that, we were able to come to a really clear understanding of the impact of exercise and lifestyle around mortality. So from that, we were able to develop the Pi algorithms, and we have been able to clinically validate that there are certain levels of activity required to optimize protection against lifestyle disease. In essence, an insurance policy against cardiovascular disease, which is an extremely significant finding, will be published in some of the major medical periodicals, and it is really fantastic science that came out of that study.
Well, congratulations, Liz. Okay, here's your chance to ask questions. If anyone has a question for one of the panelists, I think we'll take 2 questions again. Maybe that'll be a good number. There's a
please raise your hand.
In the back over here, Julie, to your right, in the back.
Hi, I'm interested in the HUNT study. My question is directed to
Liz.
Your study between heart rate and exercise and lifestyle and death rate. May I ask about diet? Is diet is part of the equation? Because I think diet is a big part of it.
Yes, yeah. Every lifestyle factor was looked at. The diets were monitored, and that was taken into consideration.
Great. Another question? All right. If there are no questions, I want to close by asking. Oh, I'm sorry. There is one more?
I do have one more question.
Yes?
Yell it to me, please.
What do you think is the next sensor technology that you'll incorporate into your products?
What is the next sensor technology that you will incorporate into your products? Actually, and that's a question for everyone? Is that what okay. Maybe that's a great closing question. So we'll go ahead and go down the list. Michael, if you want to start, and we'll just take a round. Go ahead.
Yeah, as we're looking more and more into tracking, aside from activity for the pets, also tracking health features and vitality signs. We're definitely looking into heart rate monitoring, for instance, for pets, which is brings a lot of challenges because of the fur and hair and different things like that. So that's definitely something we're looking at, and hopefully have something great to show soon.
Good. Okay. How about you?
It's difficult to share roadmap information in front of so many people. But one thing is absolutely certain is that what about using what we already have in a better way? There are a lot of things. I mean, especially with heart rate, there are dozens and dozens of things we can look at and bring to the forefront. And now, just thinking of intensity of effort, for instance. If there was a measure of that, and the sense is the same, but the data, the way you look at the data, you'll get you will. So, without giving up all of our secrets, I think one of the things that is important is that mining the sensors that we already have on board, and God knows there's already a lot of sensors on these little wearables.
Yeah, on that note as well, we can't really share the roadmap here, but definitely, like for example, heart rate, while wrist-based optical heart rate is really popular and it's very easy and accessible, the heart rate measured still from the chest, the EKG, delivers heart rate variability, which is like high definition heart rate, you could say, and there's loads and loads of insights that come from that as well that are still like very much unknown. We've commercialized quite a few of them, but there's still like people picking that up in terms of stress monitoring. Also fitness levels can be determined through heart rate variability, this kind of a thing. So there's a lot of, let's say, that you can still get out of the sensors that are out there right now.
Personally, I don't mind sharing our roadmap.
All right, yay.
From your PPG signal on the wrist, you can get some extraordinary insights. And we will be actually doing heart rate variability, which measures stress, and also overtraining and other stuff from the wrist in motion. That'll be probably the first company in the world to actually be able to do that.
Accurately.
Accurately.
Right, yes. Okay.
And we'll be adding respiration, oxygenation, even blood pressure monitoring. So stay tuned, some exciting sensor technologies coming from Mio.
Great. Well, Liz, Marco, Jocelyn, Michael, thank you so much for sharing your insights. Go ahead and give them a round of applause.